Let's bring in North Carolina Republican Congressman Greg Murphy, a member of the House Veterans Affairs Committee. He voted against the War Powers resolution that passed in the House last week. So as you assess the situation right now, Iran launching missiles against Israel, what should the United States response be?
You know, John, this is just a precarious situation. It's been this for quite some time now. I think now the Hezbollah having launched their attacks on Israel, Israel retaliating, and now Iran showing its hand, going after civilian targets in Israel itself, and then saying that they're going to go after American targets itself. This is a different time, and as the president said, you've got your missile attack. Sit back down to the table. Hopefully, patience prevails. Hopefully, rational considerations prevail. I don't trust the Iranians. We haven't trusted them for 47 years. I don't believe that they're going to do anything to stop their belligerence. That said, I think the president is trying to do things in good faith to make the world safer for our children and our grandchildren. And this is what I wish that the American people understood, which is not easy. It's not easy. If you look back at what happened in Britain during World War II, the hardships that those individuals tolerated to not have Nazism go across Britain and go across Europe. If we had a nuclear Iran, it would make Pakistan, it would make even North Korea look like, our friendly neighbor. Our world would never be safe for our children, for our grandchildren. And so, after 47 years and being paid off by, the Obama administration and the failed Iran nuclear deal, we had to do something. And it's an inconvenience to people. I absolutely understand and sympathize with those who are, facing higher prices because of this. But I think, we have to step back and look at why. We have have a radical regime which in their constitution says they want to have their radical Islamic beliefs put across the world through whatever means they deem necessary. And that's a nuclear weapon. So, it's challenging times. We have to be willing to do what needs to be done.
It's perhaps not surprising that the minority leader in the House of Representatives, where you serve, is sort of the opposite viewpoint. I want to play something here from Democrat Hakeem Jeffries of New York.
We, as Democrats and Republicans, particularly in an environment right now where this is day 100 of Donald Trump's reckless and costly war of choice, have to be focused on ensuring, one, that we always, at all times, protect the national security interests of the American people. That's not what's happening right now as it relates to what's going on in Iran. In fact, Iran is stronger now than they were before this reckless and costly war of choice was started.
So reckless and costly war of choice must be in the talking points, but he says Iran is stronger now than it was before the war. Do you agree with that?
No, it's because the Democrats are supporting Iran, because literally they hate Trump more than they love the country. I mean, it comes down to that with Hakeem at sometimes. No, this is not easy. Peace is not easy when you have a belligerent country and a belligerent leadership like the Islamic Republic of Iran. But the fact that he wants to sell out the country because they hate Trump so much, they want Trump to lose so badly that they don't care about their children or their grandchildren or the future of the free world, for that matter, I think is very sad. I think it's tragic. It's a mar across our nation. But, that's one of the challenges of democracy, where we have differing sides that come and feel differently about certain actions, about certain political beliefs. But to go and basically goad on and cheer for Iran and this type of things is sadly, not patriotic. It's tragic. And, to make them say that they're stronger, good Lord, where does that come from, Hakeem?
Yeah. The president, we're waiting to see how he responds to this barrage of of ballistic missiles that Iran has launched against Israel and some of its other neighbors, also threatening U.S. troops and bases in the Middle East. The president was asked this morning in a fairly contentious interview with Kristen Welker on NBC what his red line would be. Listen.
What would trigger you to restart military action? Would it be Iran killing more American citizens?
Well, certainly that would be something that I would think about very seriously. But my red line would be if I think I wasn't going to make a deal, or if I wasn't going to make a deal fast enough. So we're having very good negotiations with the people that are leading the country now. It's the third group that we've been dealing with, and they are different.
So the president seems fairly confident. I'm completely on the sidelines, but I almost wonder, who is running Iran right now?
Yeah.
So much of the leadership has been eliminated there.
Yeah, and to Hakeem's point where they're stronger than now, I don't think so. I think whoever gets to be appointed leader in that country starts to wonder when they're going to have, something dropped on them. No, the red line, John, is that they cannot have a nuclear weapon. If you look back at the failed Iran nuclear deal at Kerry, just what a horrible tool, what a horrible negotiation that was. It basically allowed them to do what they wanted to do, and then we paid them billions of dollars to do that, where they funded their proxies. So again, the red line is now just what it was at the beginning. They cannot have a nuclear weapon. If you look at this, and we'll never know this, John, of what was prevented. Was it a ballistic missile landing in Paris or in London, or was it a dirty bomb coming up the Hudson River and killing millions of people in New York because of one of the proxies that Iran had flushed through? If they have a nuclear weapon, they, again, even more so, control the Strait of Hormuz, but they control so much in the rest of the world. So, yeah, it's challenging. It is hard. But for the sake of the future, literally, of the free world, we have to stand tall and make sure that they never have a nuclear weapon.
I just want to put up very quickly Fox News polling on what Americans think about the war. The numbers haven't changed that much since April. Yeah. Right now, 40% say they support, 60% oppose the military action against Iran. Those numbers changed about 5% from last time around, but there is a 3% margin of error. So not a great deal of movement here. Last final thought. What do you say to the American people?
John, I think we have to do a better job of telling the why. Every night on the news, all they do is talk about gas prices, and those are important. But did they talk about that when Biden has his $5 gas, when things were much more expensive during the Biden administration? No. So many of the regular other news networks, this is what the narrative they want to push. This is called safety and security for the world and for our children and our grandchildren. Hard decisions are hard, and we had to do what we had to do to stop them, because this regime, this radical Islamic regime, only wants their world, their Sharia law, to be the world, to be the law of the world. We can't allow that. We can't allow them to have their nuclear weapon to do that.
Congressman Greg Murphy, Republican of North Carolina. Thanks for your time today. We appreciate it.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube, and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.